Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Pilot Lawyer Podcast. Thank you for your attention while this important legal information is reviewed. What you hear should not replace consultation with an attorney and should not be considered advice for your situation. On behalf of the Pilot Lawyer and your entire crew, it's our pleasure to have you aboard.
Welcome, aviators, to the Pilot Lawyer Podcast with us, the Ison brothers at the Ison Law Firm. You're here with us as we navigate the FAA medical certification process for pilots and those who want to become pilots. In this podcast, we loosen our ties a little and try to have a good time with an oftentimes frustrating subject. We say around the office, if you don't laugh, you cry. So whether you are laughing at us or with us, join us brothers as we discuss the fascinating world of FAA medical certification. Now, I will say, today we're not going to have a podcast as lively and entertaining as 45, or should I say 47, on Joe Rogan. But we will have an interesting discussion about FAA medical certification and whether or not you can speed up the process with a congressional senator inquiry.
Does it have to be through a senator?
It could be through a U.S. congressman or woman or a senator.
I think they're referred to as congresspersons now.
You know, I heard I was watching Fox News, as I do, the other day, and there was clearly a woman that was a congresswoman or whatever. She was a woman, but the host called her congressman. And then I got to think of, well, is that acceptable? Are we calling the women congressmen? Is that some sort of like jargon that I'm missing?
Anyhow, you want to try and get your medical with the FAA.
Yeah, so one question we get a lot, I'm talking a lot around here, is, and you probably have been on www.reddit.com.
Oh, yeah.
And you have seen probably a lot of things you don't want to see, or maybe you do. But there's oftentimes conversation there about contact your congressional representative because I did that and I had my medical next day.
From one troll to the other.
Yeah.
One wonders if you would have had your medical the next day had you not contacted your
It is an interesting thought process, but we have a lot of mixed feelings there. We got a lot of problems with you people. It's from Seinfeld. But we got a lot of mixed feelings around here about congressional inquiry. So let's take you through the process.
Maybe before we take them through the process, we'll just skip straight to the end result.
Cut to
the guano, and then we'll tell them why the guano smells the way it does.
Here's the answer. I wouldn't do it in every case. But there are some cases where I would do it.
What kind of cases are those?
Well, it's hard to say.
So maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't.
Maybe you've been sitting in review at the Federal Air Surgeon for 5 years?
I don't know. That's the problem. It's very random, and here are the problems. Here's the main problem. Let me back up. Let me back up.
Collect your thoughts.
You don't want to apply for your medical and then all of a sudden, just start calling the congressman, right? Or let's just say the generic senator. You don't want to. This isn't an appropriate thing to do unless you're apply for the medical. You've put everything in front of the FAA that they could possibly need or want, and your file is not subject to further consideration of other issues, and they may want more. And you got to know that it's pretty much just a matter of them taking forever to look at your stuff.
Are you telling me you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them?
You got to know when to hold them. No, yeah. So you got to know that. The thing is, though,
you got to time it.
It's a timing thing, and you have to read the room, right? For example, if you have ADHD and you've submitted a neuropsych evaluation as appropriate, but you also know that you've had a massive heart attack and the FAA hasn't asked about that yet, but it's a good chance they're going to.
And you've told them about it.
You've told them about it. Yeah, you haven't had a heart attack in the interim, but they know about the heart attack. You know they're going to ask about that, but you haven't provided them anything about it. The next thing that's going to come back is them wanting the cardiac stuff. And so the thought process that I'm having here is that you want to make sure that everything is there before you do the senator or this congressional inquiry, because the congressional inquiry is only going to just force them to say what they want next and that type of stuff. It's not even going to force them. That's all they're going to do is say, oh, well, we need this now, right? It's not really going to do anything for you. So my point being is that you want to make sure that the file is as good as possible. It has everything there, supports your eligibility, before you pull the trigger on a congressional inquiry.
Would you say it's akin to hitting the NOS button before you get to the end of the race?
Not really. Because
I'm right off. I'm right off.
Straight to Fast and Furious.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
so maybe you hit the NOS
Too
button.
soon, Junior.
That's too funny. So you hit the NOS button, but you don't always know if there's any NOS in the tank. That's the problem. Or if the NOS is going to explode, right? You got it wired wrong.
Is there something?
And I'm going to explain it to you.
Yeah. Is there like a?
If you'd stop mincing these metaphors, I'd be able to go ahead and get to it. So first of all, there's a time to do it and there's a time not to do it, and you really have to read the room. And if you're working with us or if you'd like to work with us, we'd be happy to tell you if it's appropriate or not. There's a little plug for ourselves. So that's number
readers.
one. When do you do it? We come in, we read the room, and we leave. So what's the point? So the idea here is that the FAA is not answering your inquiry or your application. You're waiting forever, and you need a fixer, right? You need someone to help push it through is what you want. But I don't know that this is really going to get that for you. So let me explain.
The congressperson is the fixer?
Maybe. I'll get to that in a second. But why? But first, let's ask, why is it taking so long? I'm going to say this here. It's being recorded. I'm going to put it out into the ether. It doesn't really have anything to do, per se, with your case in and of itself.
It's not a you.
It's not a
issue.
you thing. This is
a them issue.
It's an everybody thing. And it's hard for people to comprehend that because it's all they're seeing is themselves, which is reasonable. I mean, it's absurd how long it takes. And if I was sitting there, I would say this is absurd, right? I totally.
I'm just looking for an answer on a little scrap of paper.
Yeah, we all understand it's frustrating to be in your shoes waiting, but I've had conversations with people recently and understand it. And I've known this for a long time. It's purely a backlog and a staffing issue. I'll speak bluntly. I don't know if anybody out there at the FAA is an audience member, but I don't think there are a lot of doctors that want to work there. I just don't think a lot of doctors who could otherwise be making probably some good money. I don't know that there's a lot that want to work there. That's what I hear from other doctors in the community, which is, oh, who would want that job? I've heard that from several doctors on this side of things. So I think that's a problem. They have a PR problem, right? That nobody wants to work there. And that's just me guessing. Now, I'm sure there are people who want to work there.
And that's not to say that those that do work there that are physicians are incompetent or somehow otherwise not qualified. It's just
very select few, I think, want to work, to enjoy that line of work.
I think it's going to have to be a passion thing.
Yeah, but passion. It's like somebody could say that about us. Why wouldn't you want
to be a judge?
Yeah, why wouldn't you want to be a personal injury lawyer? Why would you want to do this administrative stuff? So I just is saying that it's a very unique niche. I don't know. It just depends on how much it pays, and there's a lot to it. And so the problem being is that there aren't a lot of doctors there. And the way the process flows is it goes from for most cases, it goes from the legal instrument examiner, which is a lower level reviewer. They make sure that everything is looking good. They got all the records there for the most part that they need for the issue. And they're sort of the gatekeeper to sending it up to the doctor for review. And so what you're waiting on most of the time is the doctor to review the file, as I understand, right? So we're waiting because they've got plenty of legal instrument examiners, as I perceive it. It's really this doctor review that eats up the most time. It depends on what division you're in as well. If you're in the Federal Air Surgeon's office, there's not very many doctors there in the Federal Air Surgeon's office at all doing these specialty evaluations like psychiatry, right? If you have to have your file reviewed by one of the psychiatrists, very few doctors there. So the problem is a lot of vying for the review time by a doctor, and there's a lot of people in line. So it's unfortunately a very much a backlog issue, and it also depends on what division, if you will, that you're in. Right, the drug and alcohol department, in our experience, is going to take quite a bit longer than the general review. general review being, things like ADHD or something, hypothyroidism, for example.
Don't the cardiac and like neurology boards, they only meet quarterly or on a certain schedule.
And then you got cases go through the cardiac review. You got cases go through the neurological review. You got cases go up to the federal air surgeon. Now, problem with it, and this kind of preface everything on this congressional thing, is that cases that go to the federal air surgeon, they take, in my estimate, sometimes 2 or 3 times. It's not longer, the time it takes to get through the review in Oklahoma City. So you don't want to go to D.C. unless you absolutely have to, or there's some reason to go there.
So you start out, your file starts out in Oklahoma City, right?
That's correct.
And then, depending upon the issues, after Oklahoma City looks at it, it could go to D.C. for review.
They could send it to D.C.
But it's not a guarantee that your file is going to go to D.C.
No, so
based on the issue.
Most of the time, it's a mental health concern.
But hang on.
Well, I'm just trying to say, most of the time in D.C., it's a mental health concern because that's where the psychiatrists are.
Sure. But so let's say it's not a mental health issue, just for the sake of this little analogy or
tete-a-tete.
Yeah. So let's say it's not. Let's say it's a cardiac issue, right? And you're being reviewed at Oklahoma City on this cardiac issue, but it's been taking a while, and you're getting antsy, rightfully so. So you pull the trigger on a congressional inquiry. Does that send it to D.C. then?
You're jumping ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to keep these people interested.
That's the thing.
This monologue that you got going on over here about doctors.
I don't know.
Elections.
I don't know. That's the problem. It's random in that we've seen cases that shouldn't otherwise have gone to D.C. A congressional inquiry is placed, and the file gets transferred to D.C.
On something you normally wouldn't see them go to D.C.
Maybe wouldn't see it go to D.C. Or maybe it is a mental health case. And I'm thinking, hey, this should stay in Oklahoma City. But what happens is they get these congressional inquiries, as this is my perception. This is what I see. They're like, send this one to D.C. Because this is mental health involved. That's my perception. Now, where it gets a little bit wonky is that I've seen some cases where ADHD, all the neuropsych evaluation, everything's sitting there. It's just pristine. We're just waiting for the FAA. We're pushing on the FAA. We're pushing. Say, hey, you gotta do this, and because everything is there, it's easy. And do a congressional inquiry. Boom. That's me snapping into the microphone. The congressional inquiry helps, but I've seen cases where they say, hey, send this one up to D.C. Now we're in a spot where
you're at the back of the line.
Back of the line. That's right. It's just not good, right? You've maybe caused it to be worse, where otherwise if you just kind of been patient, unfortunately, again, we understand how agonizing that is. It adds to it. So I will also say, I can't name any sources, never can, but we've talked to several doctors at the FAA that really, apparently the congressional inquiries are taking on a life of their own, to where people have kind of gotten this thought process that, hey, we're all going to do a congressional inquiry, and then you're just moving the line from one, you like step into the side, right? Everybody's in line, they take one step to the right. They're just back in line for these congressional inquiries. And so what is a congressional inquiry? I guess we could start with that.
Now we're going to start.
We'll start with that. We're getting started now. This 14 minutes has just been buffer. So I printed this off of the Honorable Senator, what's his name? Ted Cruz from Texas. Man, it was he was pretty worried there for a second. It looked like he seemed pretty. I was getting a lot of text messages. Contribute. I don't even live in Texas. What do you think I'm going to do?
Send money.
Yeah. My God. So I printed this off his website. So an interesting little tidbit is that a lot of individuals that I have found, the senators and whatnot, have a spot on the website that says, need help with a federal agency?
Yes.
Right. So it's apparently, it's usually fairly, what I've seen lately, it's fairly prominent on the website. Right. It's not like you're having to, call them and say, how do I do this? It's like, that's the first thing. So
to justify your existence.
Justify this is, there's that, and this, bureaucracy, right? They're trying to establish that bureaucracy is slow. But I thought I was looking at Ted Cruz's little section here the other day, and
for some light reading.
Yeah, for some light reading, and I thought he laid it out pretty much what he can do and what he can't do, and so I thought I'd just read this off. This is pretty much universal across the senators and whatnot. The thought process.
Has your FAA medical certificate been denied? Are you concerned you may not be able to get a medical certificate from the FAA? Are you at risk for FAA action for failing to report your medical history appropriately? Call the pilot lawyer at 1-855-FAA-1215 to discuss your options for getting the FAA to issue your medical certificate and get you flying. We are happy to evaluate your case and discuss with you a plan for presenting your case to the AME or the FAA. Aviation law is all we do, nothing else.
First of all, Federal Privacy Act of 1974 prohibits the disclosure of federal agencies of confidential information concerning your affairs without your written authorization. So if you make an inquiry through the congressional inquiry, they're going to essentially say, hey, we need you to sign a release so that, we can talk to the FAA about your case. There may be a record sharing. And then typically I see them ask for you to write a statement or something saying, well, what do you need help with? Right. So just expect to have to sign a release for the senator's office to be able to talk about your protected medical information. And then, essentially, the way Ted Cruz identifies this essentially says, my staff and I are ready and happy to help Texans cut through the red tape, solve problems, and get answers to questions about federal agencies, which kind of cuts across what it says below that, which says, my office can help you if you're a Texas resident, just fill in whatever state you live in with whatever center you're going to, with a question about a federal agency, program, or process. We're happy to assist you. Although we cannot circumvent agency rules, so just circle that, right? Force a decision in your favor, underline that, or change a decision that is already final.
Bold that.
Star that, yeah. we can contact the agency on your behalf and ensure that your case is being handled properly.
Give that an exclamation point.
Yeah. So just to be clear, essentially, they're not convening a committee here, right? Hey, we're going to talk about Jim Bob's medical certification. We're gonna come on down and take a look at you. We're not going to bring 47 down with us. Essentially, it's a staffer, just some liaison is going to call up another liaison at the FAA and say, hey, what's the deal with this guy, right? Or this gal. Now, from my experience, that is sometimes enough for the FAA to say, if you're like right on the precipice of an answer, you're in Oklahoma City, and everything is just there, and they just hadn't gotten to you yet. Sometimes I think that will turn into a situation where like, hey, we don't feel like having to deal with this and answer this and so on and so forth. The time it takes us to look at it to see where it's at, we could just do it, and so they do it, and there's your medical certificate. I think that is where people are seeing success on maybe some of these easier cases where it's, hey, everything is sitting there. We'll just do it.
And you were going to get a yes.
Yeah, you were going to get a yes, and it was going to be relatively soon. And the congressional inquiry helped tip that over, the scales. Now, for the most part, what I see happen is they do the congressional inquiry. There's a doctor in the Federal Air Surgeon's office that's kind of staffed for looking at these things. And then they'll send back a letter to the senator's office and say, hey, dear Senator such and such, yeah, this person's got a problem. They've got this and that, and we're looking at it. It's probably going to be another 8 weeks. That satisfies the inquiry, right? So the idea is they're saying, hey,
your case is being handled properly.
Yeah, we're doing the right. We're doing everything right. It's
God's
great.
Work.
It's great.
And your congressional representative has ensured that your case is being handled properly.
That's right. Now, sometimes they'll say, hey, this person's got a pretty bad drinking problem. You wouldn't want the interest of aviation safety to be jeopardized, right? We're justifying our work here. We need we need this airman to do X, Y, and Z, and then you go to rehab. Then you do all this stuff, right? So it really hasn't done much for you in that capacity. It hasn't reached. It's not the congressional inquiry is not the congressional liaison is not going to turn around and say, "Hey, what are you talking about? You need to get this done."
They're not going to be your advocate.
No, they're just going to say, "What's the status?" Oh, okay, thanks. Right now, again, sometimes that's enough in addition to, if you're working with us, sometimes it kind of help put the squeeze on. And, most of the time this is in cases where, it's been languishing and they're not willing to just move it forward. But it's not in every case, but most cases I would say that it's a situation where they say, hey, well, we'll get to it. I think it's kind of far and few between the cases where they just pull it and say, yeah, we'll do this and get it over with. So is a universal elixir to the problem? No.
Well, I mean, he even goes on here to say what my office can do. And it's pretty specific. He's only got 4 things his office can do. Help you communicate. Sounds about right. Help you communicate with federal agencies. All right.
Okay.
Request information or a status report on your case.
Okay.
Submit an inquiry with a federal agency on your behalf.
That's kind of the same thing as 1 and 2.
1 and 2. So
how can we make 3? How can we make one thing sound like 4?
But wait, there's more. Help you obtain basic information from a federal agency. All right. So we're gonna. Man, this is real government speak.
Want to know what I love is what my office cannot do. And there's literally nothing.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to put that part out.
I would imagine it's advocate on your behalf.
Yeah. Here, I'll pull it up. Standing by.
As he pulls it up, I'll just reiterate here what Anthony has said, that if you pull the trigger on this, it could have deleterious consequences.
Deleterious.
On your ability to efficiently receive medical certification with the FAA.
Yeah, let me come back to that after now I can't even find it. He must be listening to this in real time on our phone.
Scrub the internet. The NSA is...
He won the election. I don't need to do any of this again. Let's see. What the heck?
He's like, I'm tired of helping people.
I'm tired of doing 4 things in one. Let's see. What happened? Meet Ted. No. Proven records. Okay. You know what? This must be his campaign website. Stand by.
See? Just like a politician. He makes a pledge to you as soon as he gets in office.
Probably going to get some sort of no letter from his
staffer.
Whatever.
Okay, here we go. Services. First thing, need help with a federal agency. Okay, what he cannot do.
What my office cannot do.
Yeah, what my office cannot do. Now this is
we know.
This is a 5-prong approach here. Force a federal agency to act in your favor or speed up your case. So it's right there.
I mean, literally. I mean, again, this is one.
This is one
out of 100.
That's right.
But
you got it. And it's nothing against him.
Yeah,
it's not like it's not a him thing. It's just that it's only so much they can.
He's just another gator in the swamp.
What they're allowed to do. I want to be the raccoon on the gator's back.
So that's number 1. Number 2, provide legal advice or recommend an attorney. It's just a given. He's going to recommend us. Just kidding. I can't backdoor a plug from Ted Cruz for our firm. Okay.
Haven't contributed enough.
Didn't respond to those text messages.
Should have given that $5.
3, overturn or influence matters involving private businesses. Okay.
I don't think that's applicable.
That's applicable. Really. Intervene with state issues. Okay, I'm not even going to get involved in that. Or intervene with judicial issues. Now, I have seen that when people say, there are cases at the NTSB. And, there's pending a trial. Waiting for a trial. And I'm going to call my senator. I'm going to get my senator involved. Well, no. You can't.
He's not going to come down here and testify for it.
Yeah. That's on his list of numbers. It's actually literally, my office cannot legally get involved with pending litigation, including questions about criminal trials or imprisonment, child custody issues, deportation proceedings, and civil lawsuits. My office cannot overturn or in any way influence a court's decision. I'm sure that's applicable across the board.
Like a man that went to Harvard Law.
Did he?
I think he did.
Wasn't he like some sort of Supreme Court arguer?
Let's see.
I don't know.
So that's kind of there's the takeaway on what they can do, what they can't
Harvard
do.
Law.
And essentially what they can do is just to kind of reach out and say, hey, what's going on? And get you an answer on maybe what's going on. But the problem with doing that, though, is that
it could take your case from being, hey, maybe on the precipice of an answer to, send this to D.C.
Get in the back of the line. And now you're going to get really scrutinized.
Or potentially sent to a level of review that you wouldn't have otherwise had to encounter.
So then I'll let it stand.
I'll let it. I'll allow
it. Anyhow, so let's say that happens, right? Well, better yet, let's say this. Let's say that you're in D.C.
Let's say something.
Let's say let's say your case has naturally matriculated through the process and you're at D.C.
I've gotten to the point.
And you're at D.C. for a long time. Let's say you've been there for at least 9 months.
You've got nothing to lose. That's right.
Okay. We put Alex in front of the soundboard for once.
And that was your mistake, okay?
And it's finally found a reason to be in here.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where I feel like if you've been waiting in D.C. for a long time, well, at that point, you might not have anything to lose.
So there's a time when you just go ahead and pull the trigger. Anyhow, I came in blasting.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah. Definitely, we're not advocating gun violence either.
No, that's from Sonny and Philly. It's a meme, in case anybody didn't get it.
We have to throw a line here between humor and clarifying every single thing we say and do.
Can't just have that freedom of speech.
And have a quip.
What was that crap you were saying about freedom of speech where it only applies to the government, not the private businesses?
Well, I'm saying the government can't infringe upon your right. So a private business like Twitter or whatever, or Facebook, technically they can't infringe upon your freedom of speech because they're not a government actor. Unless there is some sufficient tie or they're doing it at the behest of a government, to curtail speech. But if it's just, hey, listen, we're Facebook and we only want to support, the Green Party and no other party, so we're going to shut down everything on any other party. Well, that's their right.
Hey,
so it's not a curtailment of freedom of speech because they're not a government actor in that regard.
Your mom's a government actress. All right. So I think we've given this one
She prefers to be called an actress.
That's just getting weird. So I think that about wraps it up. Should you do it? I don't know. That's the answer. Lots of people are, they can't retaliate. They can't do it. Sure, they can't retaliate. It's not like the FAA is going to say, this guy made a congressional inquiry, so we're gonna really we're gonna deny him.
To him.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. But the once you set something into action, into the process might backfire on you. That's the problem. And it's just a hard question to answer, and it's really fact dependent. I don't think anybody on Reddit can give you an answer on this one.
Yeah, you really gotta
cool it with the Reddit.
Well, unless they're advocating for us.
yeah. Please.
It's the only time Reddit's ever right.
Yeah. It's all about us.
But I think it all comes down to, where are you uniquely positioned in the process?
Or are you?
Because that's the problem. I think we said this before, and I always say this to pretty much anyone.
And you're going to say it now.
I'm going to say it again. Just because you have maybe an ADHD case, for example, and somebody else on Reddit had an ADHD case, for example, and they did X, Y, and Z, doesn't necessarily mean that you're only going to have to do X, Y, and Z, or that you should do X, Y, and Z. Maybe you should be doing A, B, and C. And so it's like having a snowflake, right? Sure, it's snow, it's white, it's cold.
It's not always white.
Well, if it's falling from the sky, it's probably white until it gets to the ground.
And then my dog comes and pees.
But no two snowflakes are alike in their shape and form.
How do we know this?
I don't know or care. That's what they
Science.
say. It's for the purpose of this argument. Let's take apples, okay? You can have a red apple, you can have a green apple. They're both apples, but they're completely different types of apples. So just because you got an apple of a case doesn't mean
but there are red apples that are they're all alike.
No,
there's Fuji apples. There's
Fuji
Red
Macintosh.
Delicious.
Yeah, but those are similar.
No, they're not. Totally different.
I'm saying you can have multiple Fuji apples. You can have multiple of the same Fuji apples.
Well, but that's the problem though. You don't know.
Yeah, sure.
So if you're on Reddit or some other forum, it doesn't have to be just Reddit. Anywhere on the internet, anywhere down there at the at the buffet at the
this is where you'll find us
at the airport, restaurant.
Man, wouldn't that be a mecca?
Oh, anyhow,
wouldn't it be interesting if we gave a little more content on these podcasts?
I mean, there's only so much.
This was delightful content.
We're not Joe Rogan. Get Joe Rogan and Trump in here, and they'll go 3 hours with us sitting in the background.
We're probably one of the people they queue up on the TV screen and say, "Have you seen this? Have you seen these guys? They're so stupid." But I think the thought process.
Probably do better on Theo Vaughn.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny.
Wonder what I like? The color red.
Okay, so I think we got Ted Cruz and Theo Vaughn coming after us. All fun and games, but don't do the congressional inquiry until you call us first.
Alrighty, so we've landed.
No. Yeah, I guess we've landed.
It was one of those landings where you didn't even know. It crept up on you. I was on a flight like that once.
Oh, yeah?
I went up to Minnesota.
Well, you vlogged another uneventful half hour and change listening to the Pilot Lawyer podcast. And even though Ted Cruz is banging our door down
with a full SWAT team
trying to erase this content, we are the Ison brothers of the Ison Law Firm. Have a good one.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.